Hey guys, Will here with some more information from the recent Warlords of Draenor press events. One of the first things they talked about was the starting experience of Draenor. So they're saying that everyone will do this kind of unique starting experience just for the expansion. So that'll basically involve going through the Dark Portal and stopping the imminent threat of the Iron Horde. Now we don't defeat them right off the bat, but it's presumed that we destroy or disable their Dark Portal. That's how they're getting to Azeroth. So we'll kind of go through there, presumably into non-jungle, and we'll destroy or disable that portal for a period of time, and then they'll have to rebuild it later as we progress through the zones. Some characters, specifically Ner'zhul and Drekthar, in the recent gameplay videos that we've seen, those characters mention that there are slave camps into non-jungle, and that they say the player helped rescue orcs or Draenei depending on your faction, so it seems like that's likely. Characters that are boosted to 90 will have a slightly different experience, in that most of their skills will be removed from their bars and they'll be unlocked as they play, kinda similar to how Death Knights used to get their talent points as they would quest. It makes sense to me. In garrison news, they're saying that garrisons will give you access to more professions, but they're trying to make it so that it doesn't make actually having the profession useless. For example, they don't want it to be like, you can just build an engineering building, and that'll be just as good as having engineering. They really want it to be like, it's a bonus and not a requirement, or you don't have to feel like you have to have certain profession buildings because you get access to those professions. I don't want everyone to have, say, jewel crafting and engineering professions, or blacksmithing, things like that. They really want it to just be kind of a bonus and not to replace actually having those professions. The stable building in the garrison will show mounts that you own, based on the ones you use the most. Now personally, I think it should be based on ones you choose. I don't think that if someone uses a mount the most, I don't think that should be automatically displayed. I think that you should be able to choose which mounts you want to display. It's a pretty minor thing, I don't think anyone really cares, but it should be a little bit more customizable. It shouldn't just be automatically chosen for you. Apparently, garrison NPCs, I presume they mean the followers, have new AI, basically to make them feel more alive. For example, the blacksmith could wake up and go to work, then he could get thirsty and go take a break and head to the tavern, and then later on he could go to the barracks and go to sleep. And they said the reason that they're doing this improved AI isn't just to make the world feel more alive, it's kind of out of necessity, right? So, because we can place the buildings wherever we want, they kind of had to make it so they didn't just script them one way. They kind of had to make the NPCs a little bit smarter. They say they might use this new AI in other places, which I think would make the world feel more alive if the NPCs weren't quite as scripted. They didn't just kind of walk down a certain path. If they had, more options in what they did. The location of your buildings is going to be a personal choice and not really a gameplay optimization thing. So what that means is that where you place your mine won't really affect the resources you get out of it. It's just you prefer a certain layout to another. It doesn't really matter where you place it. The real gameplay of garrisons and the buildings there is which buildings you want. Because you have limited plots, you can't put every building. So you kind of have to choose which ones you put, but it doesn't really matter where you put them. That's all up to you. They say they don't want people to have to do garrisons on their alts to funnel resources to their mains, which did happen with the farm. I think that a lot of people found that they had to do, 10 farms every day because they had to funnel resources to their main to level cooking or to make banquets and things like that for their guild. And I really hope garrisons end up having either really good catch-up mechanisms or end up being account-wide. I know they said at BlizzCon that they're going to be character-bound and not account-bound, but I really hope we don't have to feel like we have to do them on every single character every day. Blizzard is saying that they want you to check in on your garrison about once per play session, probably when you log in or log out. And that makes sense to me, kind of similar to the farm. They say that you won't spend a ton of time there and that you won't just idle around in your garrison, because there's really no bank or no auction house there, so they're not going to replace your cities. People are probably going to hang out in Bladespire or Karabor, or maybe go back to Org, depending on if they have auction houses there. Now to me, this kind of sounds like dailies without the quests. If you have to go to a place every day, isn't that basically the same thing as a daily quest? Hopefully the gameplay of garrisons will be more engaging than dailies though, so we'll have to wait and see to the beta to see if it's actually mandatory or if it feels good to do every day or not. In raiding news, they're saying there's no plans for any Mythic-only bosses in the first raid tier, but Mythic-only elements, like extra phases, will be present. And that's cool. I think that people expect that. It's the same as Heroic. They just basically changed the name. I think everyone expects Heroic-only phases for final bosses and things like that. They say that Mythic-only bosses will be added when they make sense. Raden, the heroic-only boss in Throne of Thunder, didn't work out as intended. He wasn't tested publicly because they wanted to make him a surprise, and that ended up meaning that there were a lot of loopholes in the fight, which made him easier than intended. And really, that's just what happens when they try to make these heroic-only bosses and they don't want to test them on the PTR. they end up with bugs, they end up way too easy or way too hard, and they end up having to go in and change them, and it's really always a problem. I guess it's kind of fun for the top guilds to see something totally new, but really, in terms of the majority of the player base, I think it would be better if they just tested them on the PTR, so they didn't end up with all these bugs and things like that. Blizzard says that they're definitely aware of the timeline issues in older content, how it's a bit inconsistent in that you start out in Kata stuff, then you go into the Burning Crusade, then you go into Wrath of Lich King, then you're back in Kata, then you're in Pandaria, and now you're going back in time, sort of, in Warlords of Draenor. Yeah, it's pretty inconsistent. But they say that updating the older content would just take away resources from future stuff. And that's definitely the same reasoning we keep hearing, like, do you want to see Gilneas updated for the Alliance? Or do you want a new zone? Or do you want race-specific garrison buildings or a new raid tier? I mean, I get that building new things has big opportunity costs and they can't necessarily go back and update everything else, but they keep saying they increase the team size and they want to bring out faster expansions, and they're not really doing that, so what are they spending all their time on? I don't know. Anyway, that's really all the news we have today, so if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.